I didn't even medal that time.
Man.
I'm like an Olympic speed skater. Back with Guns and Games, I'm your host, Steve Gutowski. Today I have Ben Domenech with me of Federalist. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing well. Good to be with you.
Yeah, it's good to have you in. We're going to be playing some Call of Duty Ghost gun game. I'm going to try to actually win one during this episode. Last week I wasn't able to actually win a match, so we'll see how that goes.
Well, you'll probably do better than me, considering this is the first time I've played this game, so I guess we'll find out.
You're a pretty big gamer, though, right? I mean,
yeah, most of the time I'm more like the sort of Skyrim or Uncharted or stuff like that. I've played a lot of Assassin's Creed. Lately, I haven't had as much time as I'd like to, so I've been playing a lot of like shorter games that Steam games and stuff.
Really, like what?
Limbo and Hotline Miami, and I really liked Braid, and really liked some of these sort of interesting little mini games and stuff that they had.
Right. It sounds like you're pretty serious gamer, though.
Yeah, I mean, well, I like it, but it's like there's only so much time to sort of do it. When it comes to shooters, I kind of stick to like old school. I play a lot of like Dead Heat Source. And
okay. Yeah.
like that.
Well, one of the things we play a lot on this show is called Counter-Strike Source. Yeah. So.
Counter-Strike is really fun, but man, like, if you get on a crew of like guys who are really good at it, it's like the worst. Like they can just own you. So finding a server where it's like, okay, there's enough people who are better than me and enough people who are worse than me that I can like hold my own and not feel like a jackass. Like that's kind of the key.
Yeah, I can dominate at Call of Duty or console game shooters. But for some reason, I've always had trouble getting kills in Counter-Strike. I have no idea why. But I've always continued to play it.
Counter-Strike just has that kind of lure to it. You don't want to be bad at it. You want to be able to sort of hold your own. And I think I've gotten to the point where like I don't completely suck.
Right. So. Yeah, I game mostly on. I just killed you, though.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Cut it into parts. Oh man, it was me. I was the last.
You're the last one killed. I hate what happened to me that time is I got to like I had decent guns. In this game, the hard where you can.
So you're going up tier.
Yeah, you go up. But you in theory you get better guns as you go along. But the hang up is if you get stuck on a particular gun.
Gotcha.
Like if you get some crappy shotgun that you're very
good at, something
like that. And
so for me, it would be getting stuck like sniper rifle or something like that.
Something like, and sniper rifles.
Some people are really good at them.
Yeah, and they're better in more games like Team Deathmatch or shit, where you can just camp somewhere and kill people. Whereas in this, you have to be running around a lot.
Yeah,
and it's sort of hard to get to a spot where you can just sit down and wait for people to come by without getting left behind by the other people.
Okay.
But the other thing that tends to happen, especially if you don't have like a full game, a full group of people, is you can just be running around and not find anyone. Like that's what happened to me in the last game.
Yeah.
I was stuck in there and I was running around. I think I had a honey badger or something that I could easily get kills with, and I couldn't find anyone.
Gotcha.
I was like, good lord, what is happening?
What was one of the first games you sort of played and like first started with when you were younger?
I probably started with Nintendo with my dad. Just playing like Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah.
Even though that's probably a little bit before my time.
So
sure. The first system I had was Genesis.
Okay.
I was playing things like Sonic.
I remember saving up when I was a kid to buy a Super Nintendo, and got it right before I guess I had chicken pox or something like that, and so we got it that week and we played it all week and like played Super Mario World and like a bunch of other games.
Nice.
So that and I mean I played stuff before then, but that was the first system that most of those.
Right.
games.
My cousins had a Super Nintendo.
Oh my god.
Got that kill then.
That was terrible.
Those dueling guns are awful in this. I can't stand them. We used to play a lot of Turtles in Time, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, that's I remember
That
that.
was so good. What a great game. Oh, here's this awful rocket. This is such a terrible weapon. I got this rocket launcher, and it's just. You would think in real life the rocket launcher would be very easy to cope.
Yes, yeah.
In this game,
long,
this rocket
horseshoe is kind of a
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
This thing will. You can shoot this rocket through people and it won't kill them. It's ridiculous. I hate it. The only kills you can get are if you're.
Speak of the devil.
But yeah, I can't stand it. But another thing I can't stand. Transition here.
Yes, that was a nice transition.
Thank you. I'm getting better as the weeks go along. People who are economically illiterate. Yes, and
You mean like the president?
like the president. Apparently, millions and millions of his supporters. Because today there was a CBO report released that said, surprise, surprise.
You have to put because we like the report. You're required to put non-partisan budget on.
Right. Because otherwise.
Whoa,
Just saying
whoa,
that.
Gosh,
That's
no, man. You jerk, you sent me back a level. You told me not to do that.
I forgot. Sometimes I forget which I'm playing. I'm playing hunted or gun games. So, sorry. I shouldn't have done that. It was me. I only got second. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. So yeah, the nonpartisan congressional budget.
Yes, completely nonpartisan. There's no way that you could ever disagree with them in any way. But this time they produced something that was favorable to people who are economically literate. So essentially, surprise, surprise, if you raise the minimum wage, that will kill many jobs. And according to the Congressional Budget Office, something like 500,000.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, the one thing that you have to understand about the Congressional Budget Office is that no matter what they say, they're wrong.
Right.
It's just a question of how wrong they are and in which direction. And I mean, I'm not trying to be flip. It's actually the truth. They're always going to be wrong. Their predictions will never actually be right.
Sure.
It's just a question of sort of.
Because there's so many variables. That they can never get it completely right.
Yeah. And so the thing that really comes into play there is, you know, they're always kind of this being used in one direction or the other.
Oh, yeah. And that's the real problem with the CBO. I mean, it's designed to be sort of the referee. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to say, we'll take this law and we'll look at it and we'll tell you what it's actually going to be. But in reality, there are ways to.
So yeah, that kind of gets into the real problem, which is that you have legislative staff who are now interested in primarily constructing legislation, not because of the policy outcome they want to achieve, but for CBO.
CBO, that's what they did with Obamacare.
Exactly.
That's why they had the double counting.
Not just the double counting, but like we're going to have a bizarre budget window so that you don't get any of the out years. And then, you know, so people have sort of talked about, the costs have gone up, you know, and that kind of thing. Well, no, it's just these out years that they had before exempted by basically having all the taxes and paid for sort of front loaded before you ever get to the point where you're actually having to cover anybody and pay for any subsidies and anything like that.
You can game the CBO, and politicians know that and they do it.
And the thing that really frustrates me about it is that nobody really ever calls the CBO on it.
Once in a while,
I ended up with a crappy shotgun, and I did not realize it was a shotgun.
I hate that gun. You have to be very close to someone to actually get a kill with that.
Okay, well now I know. So
killed me.
Oh, sorry. Well, I wanted to get rid of that shotgun. Going to have fewer jobs available because you're going to be in a situation where crap, that guy knifed me, so now I've got this
back to the crappy shotgun.
The crappy shotgun. You're going to have fewer jobs that are available because it's going to be more expensive to actually hire people. You can increase the cost of labor, but you can't actually increase its value with government policy. And so because of that, you're going to end up.
You can pretend that. That's basically what it is.
That's basically what it is. So it's the thing that really is frustrating about that is that people, think about it for a second. If you have fewer people working, and the people who are working, are making slightly more than they were before, what you're actually doing is increasing income inequality. You're not actually doing anything to make it better. We need to be making it cheaper to hire people.
Which is the exact opposite of everything that the president is trying.
Oh yeah, I mean, just
what you've
done. Yeah. Everything that you've done with Obamacare is making it more expensive to hire people, more expensive to get people into the job market.
Right.
And that's completely unfortunate because it's the opposite of what we should be doing.
I hate this sniper rifle. You can't kill anyone with this thing. I've never been good with these things. I got third that time.
At least you got third, man.
I want to get first.
So you subscribe to the if you're not a winner, you're a loser.
Yeah, if you're not first, you're last.
If you're not first, you're last. Yeah.
It's the most obvious thing in the world that if you make it more expensive for employers to hire people, you will have less employment.
Yeah.
And that's all the CBO really says.
John Podhoretz today was making the joke that if this was House of Cards, Frank Underwood would be setting up the CBO with the prostitute right now.
Speaking of House of Cards, have you seen the second season already?
So I have to admit, I've seen the first season, but it was kind of in the background for me for the latter half of it, because from my perspective, there was a point where it just kind of jumped the shark and
this
became
is exactly how I feel about
it. Way too ridiculous. It's sort of the 24 thing. When they started out, it's like a much more small bore kind of plot. It's basically just a plot to try to assassinate a presidential candidate. If you sort of rewind to that thing that really sort of changed was they got really aggressive in terms of the
oh yeah, it had to be bigger every season.
Yes, it has to be bigger every season.
Nuclear explosions every season.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, another nuke went off. I mean, it's TV, so you forgive that to a certain degree. But it's also one of these things where the DC intrigues, like yes, there are crazy DC intrigues.
Right.
But it's not all combined to sort of that level of craziness.
Right.
And
this is what I never liked about it. I always like what I don't like about the hype for it. I like the show. I think the show is entertaining as a TV show that isn't to be taken as serious.
And just for the record, the show that is the serious representation of how DC is Veep. Okay.
I've had on the column staff.
That is the most realistic representation of what DC is like. People arguing over parking spaces and petty little insults. Do you like the Olympics?
I do like the Olympics.
I really don't like the Olympics, I don't think. I mean, I like the hockey, I guess. I love
the hockey.
The thing that,
so good. Did you see the Russian?
Hey, man, I got to point this out. This is the first time I've gotten more kills than you. Of course, the Russia stuff was incredible along the lines of what that seems to think they
Die, Ben. Okay. Yeah. The Olympics are definitely a star maker. Like you were saying, she's a huge star now, basically, and that wasn't even a medal game that he shot all those penalty shot goals in. It was so much fun to watch that. It was that was incredible. I was dying. My attitude towards Olympic sports that I don't like is the same as my attitude towards international soccer or things like that. If you're an American, I don't care if nobody in this country pays attention to or likes your sport, you should win. It doesn't matter to me if I don't like ice dancing or whatever. I still want us to win the game.
Yeah.
That's just the way I feel about it. If you're an American, you should be the best.
I wish I cared more. I guess is what I'm saying.
Here's something that many people might also not care about.
Sure.
But that people like us might be more interested in the latest Donald Trump controversy between with the McKay Coppins of BuzzFeed did a long profile on the Donald, and it was not.
So what do you think of Donald Trump?
I do not like Donald Trump at all. I think that he's more or less just a huckster in every aspect of it. Yeah. Really, from his whole act of being like the great, I'm such a great businessman, to the political stuff. It's all one giant act, and it all changes depending on whatever way he sees. I think that him speaking at CPAC is embarrassing.
You know, I think it is too. One of the things that I think is sad about it is that the perspective of the left is they want to make everything that the right does into a sideshow. Mm-hmm. They want to make them seem like, oh, you know, they're just a bunch of clowns. Right. You know, they're an unserious movement, an unserious party, unserious ideologically, et cetera, et cetera. I have to admit something that's sort of weird and unfortunate, but unfortunate. I've actually never been to CPAC.
Really?
No, I am one of those terrible people who just is like a hanger-on who goes to like the parties or will have dinner with people while they're in town or stuff like that. Like, I have never actually been to CPAC proper, and, you know, maybe that's bad of me, but...
I would say that after the first couple of years in politics, I mean, I just turned 27 last week.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So by no means am I do I have that much longevity?
Well, I'm 32, and I'm just old as crap.
Right.
So...
But even at our age, I would say that after the first couple of years of doing the sort of political circuit, of the conference circuit, I guess you could call it, because there's dozens of these conferences every year. I mean,
and they're terrible. They're all wasting time.
They're all the same thing.
People.
Yeah, it's the same people, and it's the same topics and the same everything. And after a while, it gets very, very tiresome, very, boring.
You're really just there to sort of see the politicians try out their latest,
Yeah.
Wares. See which things are going to work when they go to Iowa.
I like someone. Sorry. But you go for networking. I think CPAC is especially important for that.
Whoa! Gosh, this rocket guy.
I have a sniper rifle.
It definitely, the experience of this game is very different based on which things you get.
Yeah.
Like,
that's the challenge. You gotta be good with everything. You gotta try to be good with everything.
I guess it forces you to be like very.
Even metal skills there. Going back to Donald Trump, the latest ripple is this. So McKay wrote sort of a scathing, or more or less negative, I guess you could.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's scathing, but it's negative.
Do you know McKay?
I do. I do. I know McKay. And he seems like a pretty nice guy to me. I mean, I've been a prominent critic of BuzzFeed generally in the past, but I don't think they're a loss.
Do you think BuzzFeed is bad for America? like
Hackbar? No, BuzzFeed proper. I guess the main site is that's internet culture. That's the direction we're heading. I think conservatives need to be engaged in that.
I guess,
but I don't necessarily see BuzzFeed politics people. I think they're actually somewhat better than most mainstream journalists, and that's what I see them as, because that's what they are. They're mostly people who come from places like Newsweek and the Daily Beat, the traditional Time, whatever, and that's where they go when they leave. So that's what they are. But I see them as more open to criticism and hearing people out.
I feel like they're just more active on Twitter, so they pay more attention to when people criticize.
And that could be part of it. That's probably part of it. But
I don't view them as all that different from Politico or something like that. I read the piece. I thought it was a pretty good piece.
Yeah.
It didn't really surprise me all that much in the sense that, like, okay, oh my gosh, Trump is an unserious blowhard who doesn't actually plan to do anything.
The point.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that is not something that I think would come as news to the vast majority of America, you know, whether or not you're sort of engaged in politics or
anything. He's always pretending to run for office. He never actually does. So and he just wants attention. That's basically what McKay's piece says. And in about 60,000 words, he says that. So that's probably my biggest complaint.
You liked him.
I like McKay. Probably the biggest complaint about that piece is how long. And I guess when you put that much time and effort into making a profile or a feature, you get it right. You have to write that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a long read. It's a long read because it took me this long to actually, do the work for it.
Right.
The thing that really bothered me though about sort of the reaction to it was just how ridiculous and over the top, Trump was about how offended he was.
The latest development is Breitbart, Matt Boyle, who I also know, has published a piece where Donald Trump goes on. It's
basically Trump's side of the story.
Sort of, yeah. It's sort of Trump trying to trash McKay Coppins again, sort of in a nastier, more personal way. Donald Trump accuses McKay of ogling women at his resort while they were while he was doing it like there for the interview, saying that he wished his wife was as attractive as some of these other people, and that's
a low blow.
Supposedly that's what he told Donald Trump. Which, if you know McKay Coppins, doesn't sound like I'm not best friends.
Well,
with
I don't know
like
McKay Coppins at all, but that doesn't sound like the sort of thing that any guy actually says, unless they've had a few too many in them.
I've met him several times, and he just seems like and I've interacted with him plenty, and he seems like a genuinely nice guy. I just I don't buy that part of it, and it just comes off as like a desperate ploy on like he's just. It just seems
Well, you said something about your wife,
right? You know? Because I guess there's a shot about Donald Trump not caring about missing his anniversary in McKay's piece. There might have been a cheap shot in his piece, but it just seems to me that
look,
it's not believable. I don't believe Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is a gigantic jackass, so it's like, and we know that.
One thing that bothers me, probably more than anything else, because a battle between BuzzFeed and Donald Trump is not something that I care. I think most people, and especially me, care terribly much about. One thing that does bother me as a conservative is Breitbart's role in all this. The piece that they wrote, and the pieces that they've been writing lately, they'll get an exclusive comment from Donald Trump about whatever, and they'll just run with that as they're sort of like.
Well, far be it from me.
Not good. I mean, I still have friends over there, and I still like Breitbart, and I still like Matt Boyle, and I still like a lot of those people.
I mean, I don't have any personal gripes with any of them. Like there's nothing that I have sort of against what they're doing or anything like that. It's like, at some point you have to recognize, there was this force of nature in Breitbart who was at the center of this media enterprise, and maybe it needed him in order to be what it was becoming.
I think that's generally true of the entire conservative movement, to be honest.
Really?
There's nobody. Yeah, I think that there's no replacement for Andrew Breitbart, and we've suffered a huge loss.
I wish I could keep these guns.
I know, right? Over the years, I was able to become friends with him, and I just don't see anyone like him. There's people, everyone's unique and has their own thing to bring to it, but I just don't think there's any replacing Breitbart.
He was such a culturally focused person as opposed to like a horse race. I mean, he despised Trump. I mean, and he talked about it on TV.
Yeah, he said that Donald Trump is not a conservative because he's not.
Breitbart is the sort of person who he understood these games, and he wasn't willing to play them, which is what sort of made him such an appealing figure.
Right. He was always willing. Yeah, he was always willing to call out BS, and I think that what they're doing by peddling Donald Trump's crap around now is something that bothers me. I mean, I think that Breitbart they can produce very good journalism. They can produce very good activist style posts. I mean, Brandon Darby is taking over for Breitbart Texas, and he is great. So worked obviously directly with Andrew.
But a lot of the old crew is sort of gone now, or they've shifted to other things, or they have other priorities.
I think I was the last one who got killed there, and I didn't know again. It's terrible. Look, here's me dying like an idiot. Oh, what's happening? Wow.
So what do you think the next sort of shift to happen
time to work, soldiers.
Sort of over the next couple of years is going to be?
My prediction is that video game-based political commentary will become very popular. that's my hope, at least. Right? I also see more and more political people being on Twitter and being not just on it, but engaging. You're seeing things like the White House interacting with critics and supporters, major media personalities incorporating things that, the way their interactions on Twitter into their program.
Hey, there you meddle.
I got third.
What makes me frustrated about that is when journalists get so blinkered in their view of the world that they aren't willing to sort of reconsider it. Now, on the flip side of that, I've had other journalists who have had similar conversations with, and they've reacted with the oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Let me talk to some people because
it's those ones that I think you'll see becoming better journalists because of social media.
Exactly.
And that's why I think people like the guys at BuzzFeed aren't just going back to an earlier point, aren't as bad as a lot of other mainstream or typical sort of traditional
more
left-leaning journalists in DC, because I think that the BuzzFeed guys are more responsive. That Ben Smith, I've had plenty of things to say about it, criticize him on, but I have been able to have conversations with him, and he's at least open to hearing what you have to say. I mean, sometimes they'll knock you back or whatever, and that's fine. That's the back and forth. But I think that to sort of sum up the point of where things are going, I think you're going to see a lot more of that. Mm-hmm. And the people who are going to succeed are the ones who are going to be open, who are going to be on social media. They're going to be open to interacting with their followers, with their critics.
Yeah.
And that'll make them better journalists.
I think
that'll make the whole process better.
Yeah, it'll make them more clued into what's really going on, which is what matters after all.
That's it for this week's episode. Every Thursday there'll be edited episode up on the YouTube channel, so make sure you check us out. And that's it for this week's episode of Games and Guns with our special guest Ben Domenech.